evening. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to welcome Reverend Patrick Abent from Interquest Church, who will lead us in our invocation.
All right, so we've had a beautiful day. The winters we like in Georgia. So let's take a moment to just close our eyes. And as we close our eyes, let's just close out the day that we've had. And as we breathe, we just breathe in God's love and allow God's love to fill us. And we let go of the busyness of this day. We let go of our personal agendas. We let go of the busyness of life. And as we turn within to that peace. We turn within to the love of God. And Father, we come together this night for the greater good of the city of Milton. I ask a blessing upon the city council and Mayor Lockwood, that they feel your presence and that they are guided by that higher truth and understanding. I ask a blessing upon the city of Milton, that all this business be attended to in the highest good for all. Father, we're grateful for this beautiful city, and we're grateful for the people who serve this city and participate on all levels. Bless us this night as we stand forth, demonstrating our ability to choose the greater good. Bless this meeting, bless this council, Father. Thy will be done. And so it is. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, January 20th, 2010 to order. Will the city clerk please call roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the January 20th, 2010 regular meeting. However, I would like to remind those in the audience to please silent all cell phones at this time. Additionally, those attending the meeting who would like to provide public comment either during the public hearings or during the call for public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on an item. There is no public comment for consent agenda items or items under first presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the city clerk's staff prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable. When you hear the bell, you have 30 seconds to complete your remarks. The City Council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from a representative of such an organized group or association, provided, however, that such an individual shall file a notarized affidavit that they have the authority to speak on behalf of said organization on a form provided by the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Thurman.
Here.
Councilmember Julie Zonner Bailey.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Luss.
Here.
Councilmember Bert Hewitt.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Longoria.
Here.
Councilmember Alan Tart.
Here.
Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. I do want to recognize John, how do you say it, Albers, and he's running for, he's District 56 Senate, and so anybody wants to say hello or meet John after the meeting, please feel free. Will the City Clerk please sound the next item?
Next item is approval of meeting agenda. And this is agenda item number 10-1015. Under unfinished business, we're going to move item 1 to zoning agenda, which is RZ 09-05, 12645 Birmingham Highway, State Route 372 by McRae and Stoltz.
Okay. Is there any other items to be considered?
Mr. Mayor, I have 2 items I would like the council to consider adding to the agenda this evening. Both of these are terribly time sensitive, and they have come to us in such a time as I had to get them on before you this evening. I have handed out both of these items. What I would respectfully request would be that the intergovernmental agreement for the USGS Geological Award Assistance Program be added as number 3 on your new business agenda. And again, a copy of it is in front of you. I would also ask, Mr. Mayor, that after executive session that we would add an item which would be consideration of compromise agreement after the executive session once we come out of that executive session. Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Are there any other items to be considered? Okay. Hearing none, do I have a motion and a second?
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the meeting agenda as recommended by staff.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Tartt, second by Councilmember Hewitt. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Next item is public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that's not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. There's no discussion on items on the consent agenda or first presentations from the public or from the council. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk. Please remember this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone stating your name and address for the record. You will have 5 minutes for remarks. City clerk, do we have any public comment?
No public comment, sir.
Okay. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Will the city clerk please sound these next items?
First item is approval of the December 14th, 2009 work session meeting minutes. This is agenda item number 10-1036. Second, approval of land development final plats. Crab Apple Brook subdivision, revision to change area of lots 33, 34, and common area. And Betty Delman, minor plat, subdivide 6.8 acre tract into 2 lots. This is agenda item number 10-1037. And the third is approval of financial statements for the period ending December 2009, agenda item number 10-1038.
Okay. Do I have a motion and a second on the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I propose we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Luss, second by Councilmember Thurman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. All right, we'll move on to reports and presentations. Will the city clerk please sign the items?
Next item is presentation of a plaque for the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for fiscal year 2008 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And this is presented by Mayor Joe Lockwood. Stacy Inglis, who is our Finance Director, will accept this award.
Okay, just a minute. I'm going to ask Stacy to step forward, but the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada awarded the City of Milton the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. It is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting. Attainment of this certificate represents a significant accomplishment by government and its management. And before I give this plaque to Stacy, I just want to say how proud I am of Stacy and her staff and our entire staff and Chris. This is quite an honor.
We've got iPhones.
Call him Lisa Maggart.
You can tell Chris was away for a few days. He's got a good sense of humor.
I don't think she ever came with a camera.
We'll get a picture in a minute with this next one. All right, will the city clerk please sound the next item?
Next item is presentation of certificate for the award of financial reporting achievement for fiscal year 2008. Comprehensive annual financial report presented by Mayor Joe Lockwood. And Stacy Inglis will accept on behalf of the City of Milton Finance Department.
Definitely here. Maybe when Jason gets back, I'll ask the council to come down and we'll take that. You have it. This award of financial reporting achievement is presented by the Government Finance Officers Association to the City of Milton's Finance Department as being instrumental in the government unit achieving a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. This award includes an extensive audit, exhaustive research, in which is a 2-month process. Again, I want to congratulate Stacy on that for her team. Would like to come down and take a picture?
Come on down. I'm going to have to scoot in just a little bit here.
Scoot down.
Let's just all scoot down.
Center on the X there. All right.
There he is.
One. Here comes the real camera. Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right, Jason, get one. Sorry about that.
Did you turn it on?
Yeah, it's on. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3.
That was pretty quick, Jason.
That worked.
Stacy, thank you.
And also, real quick, while we're kind of giving kudos to our staff, I want to also mention how proud I know I am, I'm sure the council and the rest of the city is of our fire department. If anybody saw them on the news this morning, on Channel 11 this morning, there was a daycare that flooded over, I guess over the weekend, but the sprinkler system had frozen, and so obviously when it went off, the fire department arrived, and instead of just shutting off the water and leaving, I think the owner was there, and all the firemen jumped in there and started pulling furniture out and whatnot. And so, anyway, that's just another example of going the extra mile for our citizens. And I think it saved the owner thousands and thousands of dollars of damage. So, thank you to our fire department and public safety. Okay, will the city clerk please sound the next item?
This is going to, there are first presentations, and there are no first presentation items at this time.
Okay. Let's move on to the zoning agenda. Will the city clerk please read the zoning rules and sound the next item?
At the second regularly scheduled meeting of the month, the mayor and city council consider a zoning agenda. These items include rezoning petitions, modifications of zoning, use permits, and associated concurrent variances, in addition to ordinances, resolutions, and text amendments. The petitions will be heard in the sequence listed on the posted agenda. I would like to acquaint you with some of the rules and procedures for this meeting. The applicant and all those speaking in support of an application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks, provided time remains with the allotted time. The city clerk staff will be keeping track of time and will inform you periodically of the remaining time for your presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the city clerk staff prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable, before beginning their presentation. The Planning Commission heard the rezoning agenda items, and recommendations have been forwarded to the mayor and city council for consideration and disposition. In addition, the applicant shall not submit material to the council during the meeting unless requested to do so. All material that you do wish to be reviewed by the council in consideration of your application should be submitted to the staff of the Department of Community Development to be included in the normal distribution of packages to the council. When an opponent of a rezoning action has made within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating $250 or more to a local government official of the local government which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the representative local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and you have not filed a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone speak for your point of view. The first zoning item is RZ 09-05, 12645 Birmingham Highway, State Route 372, McRae and Stoltz, Inc., is requesting a rezoning from C1 Community Business to C1 Community Business to change the use from an antique store to general commercial uses salon within the existing structure. The first reading on this item was January 6, 2010. Agenda item number 10-1018, presented by Robin McDonald, Community Development Planner.
I'd like to just jump in here right before Robin presents it. Just for the record, I know the applicant, and the applicant leases office space for me, so I ran that by the city attorney earlier. I have in no way have any attachment to this property or any benefit or gain or anything negative with this zoning or whatever, so our city attorney said that it was fine for me to participate in the vote on this. Robin?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Today we have this rezoning petition located in the Crabapple Crossroads community, which is overseen by the Crabapple Crossroads Overlay. It contains 2.426 acres, of which approximately two-thirds of it would be contemplated as open space. There's only a small existing structure on the property at this point in time. Basically what happened back in the late 80s, this piece of property was rezoned, and the reason why it's before you might wonder, is because originally when it was zoned, it was conditioned to only an antique store in Condition 1A, which is our little holy grail condition that basically that was the only item that could be used for that structure. There was a request for a business license for a salon, and doing some research found out that this structure could not be used as a salon until we did a rezoning because of that very, very specific condition. So basically, let me just go through a couple points with you. The proposed use is consistent with some of the policies intent of the Crabapple Crossroads Community Plan and Partial Plan Update. It's approximately 730.83 square feet per acre, but the building size itself is 1,773 square feet. As again, I said before, per Z 86-283, it was approved for a antique store. This square footage has been accounted for when considering the policy and intent of the Crabapple Crossroads Plan and past city policy of upholding the maximum 100,000 square foot Crossroads community plans, 100,000 square feet of commercial. The purpose of this request is to allow commercial uses within the existing structure, and I'll just make a note that if for whatever reason in the future, if the property owner, whether it's Mr. Stoltz or any other future property owner, would contemplate adding more square footage, as it stands right now, it would exceed the 100,000 square foot cap. So staff sees it's consistent right now just using the existing structure, and obviously the condition will be set forth so that it would be only for the existing 1,773 foot square foot structure. So we're not going over the cap. It's already a square footage that was contemplated into that 100,000. The density is consistent with previous board policy on the subject site and in the area. Just going on, it meets the conditions as far as the overlay district. The site plan contemplates 9 parking spaces, one of which would be the handicap space that will be contained underneath the carport. I do want to review some items that the Planning Commission, when they reviewed it, made some additional conditions that are included in this set of that's before you. It is to include billboards as one of the excluded uses in Condition 1A, to delete with drive-through service after daycare businesses in Condition 1A, which has been done, to delete galleries between amusements and game rooms in Condition 1A to ensure art galleries would not be an excluded use. Also to add a new Condition 3B to restrict parking to a minimum of 9 spaces and a maximum of 15 spaces, including handicap spaces. This was done basically, we wanted to be able to allow the tenants or the owner to be able to utilize their building, but at the same time, knowing that it's a C1 use, that a permitted use could be a parking lot. We don't want somebody coming and developing as a parking lot and renting it to the Milton students, high school students, or something like that. But at the same time, we wanted to allow adequate room for a successful business. Staff is recommending as well, a part of that condition, to add all parking shall be located per the Crabapple Overlay or Northwest Overlay District, whichever is more restrictive. Basically, all parking shall be located behind the building. Another condition we would like to just add would be that the parking shall be constructed of gravel, which that was the intent of the applicant, or any other pervious material that's accepted by our city staff. Also, in condition 1A, when it speaks of wine stores, we've done a quick dimensioning of the school property, the Crabapple Elementary School, and it's approximately 423 feet away from this door and going up Birmingham Highway. And after having a consult with the city attorney, we recommend that after wine stores, that they must meet the minimum requirements of the city's alcohol license requirements. So just kind of giving a heads up that it may or may not meet that, but it appears, at least on a cursory look, that it would not meet to be able to meet the standards of our alcohol license. But in case, if ever in the future we would change it, we could they would still be able to do it if it went to a less distance. Also, I'd like to add a condition of prior to any land disturbance or construction of the parking lot, it shall go before the Design Review Board to include a review of the parking location, parking material, and any tree removal that would be associated with that construction of the parking. In the report, I state that there's only one specimen-sized tree, and that's to the right or the south portion of the property, and we contemplate the applicant would be deriving access to the parking lot more toward the north. There could be some smaller pine trees affected by that, and we'd like to make sure that the least amount of impact would occur if that would happen. And we'd like to have the Design Review Board make sure that that is the least amount of impact. So with that said, staff recommends that RZ 09-05 be approved per the conditions in your packet, as well as the additions that we've just included in our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, is there any questions for staff or Robin from either council? Okay, so I have a couple. Go ahead, Alan.
Could you, and the, hey, Robin.
Hey.
The condition that you said staff wanted to add regarding DRB review, that's not in the packet, right? That's something. That
Right, this is
you want to
something
add.
that's occurred since the publishing of
So you
the,
said prior to the installation of driveway, applicant must go, should go before the DRB to review.
to review the gravel or the material of the parking lot, the location of the parking lot, as well as any tree removal.
All right, and then the other question I have is in regard to one of the Planning Commission's recommendation, which was to include billboards as one of the excluded uses under Condition 1A.
Correct.
Am I missing that in the packet?
Well,
Is it in there?
let's see.
I didn't
It's
see
in the very front as opposed to in the back of the condition.
Well,
Oh,
I
yes,
should have
the first
included, if
one.
it's not, we
Okay.
need to include it in page 19.
It's there. I didn't see it.
Okay.
Okay. thank
And the
you.
reason for that is, if you don't know, there's a M1 where Milton's Cocktails is located, and just the way, I just want to ensure there would be no billboards because, I think there's a part of the ordinance that could contemplate having billboards because of that M1 nearby, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions for Ms. McDonald? Julie?
Robin, thank you, and thank you for being specific in terms of what you were suggesting be added. In terms of the parking, I know that there's been discussion that the applicant was looking really initially at only the 9, and I guess it was through discussion of the Planning Commission that it be extended to a maximum of 15. And based on your mention just now, that the contemplation is not that those spaces would be used for other purposes, but instead would be used for the businesses on that site.
Correct.
I guess this would be a question either to you or to our attorney. Can we just clarify that the parking, whether it be 9 or a maximum of 15 at some future point, that it be contemplated that those spaces be utilized for the business on that location, so that it doesn't in fact become something other than what you have mentioned?
As far as in the form of a condition
Yes,
to
sir.
the approval, it's perfectly legally appropriate.
Was that a typical, or?
It is. I mean, obviously, it's difficult to enforce, but certainly jurisdictions ask that because they want to have that in their quiver if they ever need to do something like that.
So that was just a question, Robin, if we could just.
Yeah, we
it
can-
would take what you said and just make it part of that condition to make it
Okay.
clear. And if you could just speak briefly, I know you mentioned that there's just the one specimen tree on site. And if you could just restate, I want to make sure that I heard you correctly, that if this conceptual site, or not if, but when it becomes a specific site prior to land disturbance, it would return to the Design Review Board, whether that be for parking, the material, and/or for tree removal. Is it fair to say that staff and our arborist would also be part of that process?
Correct, yes.
Okay, because I'm assuming that right now the conceptual site plan, because it doesn't contemplate up to 15, has not identified whether or not a tree would have to be removed. Is that correct?
Correct.
We
I
don't
mean,
really
I
know at this
suspect
point.
looking at the photos, no matter how many parking spaces, there'll probably be something removed just to have derive access to the back. So, but as far as where the actual parking is going to go, there really is no other additional trees other than trying to get back to the parking lot.
So again, any removal other than specimen, maybe we could just specify that it's other than specimen, obviously goes back to the Design Review Board as well.
Yes.
But really, any.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one.
Go ahead, John.
Ken, when we add stipulations to these types of ordinances, specifically about parking spaces,
do we create any future problems related to putting in restrictions that are, in essence, like you say, very, very difficult to enforce? I mean, are we creating a problem for ourselves later down the road where all of a sudden we're going to have a group of people that goes around counting out who's using what parking space and how they're using it?
It's a fair question. The answer is no, because obviously in local governments, most of our enforcement is done on a complaint basis anyway, and we don't have the resources to go out and check all of these things. And that's a given. We just don't. But if it becomes a problem, it is helpful to go back and look in the zoning conditions and you say, well, there's an issue there, and we can address it that way. But no.
Well, what I was worried about is all of a sudden we've got this sort of pockmarked set of ordinances. Some have restrictions on what we can use parking spaces for, and some don't. And all of a sudden we're having to sort through who's using what parking space for what purpose. And it seems, I mean, I certainly understand the rationale behind it, and I'm in favor of it. We don't want to create, parking businesses, but at the same time, do we need to take that extra step and put those restrictions in?
That's a different question. That's a good one. It's a fair question too, and that's up to the council. The purpose of these conditions is to lessen the impact of whatever land use decision you're making. So by definition, it is going to be on a case-by-case basis, because every situation you're dealing with is going to be different and lend itself to different conditions. If this condition is warranted on this property, add the condition. If it's not warranted, if it makes no sense to you or something else, then certainly leave it off. But to the extent of whether it's lawful to add it, whether it can be appropriately added, it can.
Okay. That was similar to my question. I was kind of wondering, isn't it kind of implied, it'd be one thing if they were looking for 100 spaces out there, but 9 to 15 on a structure that size, wouldn't that
We tend to suggest it's for
that business implied? So
It is implied. But again, unless it's express, you can imply it all day, but unless it's expressed, you can't enforce it.
Can I make a quick comment? It's my understanding that because right now what's being requested is a very specific use. What's contemplated in these enhanced recommended conditions are a lot of uses that are really conceptual in nature. And I think because of that, and I think the applicant, even at the Planning Commission, noted that they really are only requesting 9, and knowing that this particular property one day could change hands. And I think to your point, it's very legitimate. I think to our city attorney's point is that at least it allows the condition to be clear as opposed to wondering and leaving it up for interpretation later. Another way to handle that would be, as Councilmember Longoria just said, is that you could also just add to the exclusions that this should not become a parking business. I mean, that's an additional way you could handle it, so that indeed you don't start to create a list of possible businesses or prohibitions without also prohibiting it becoming a parking business. And so I think it's a great point that we might want to also contemplate, in addition to making it clear that those 15 are supposed to be for this business, if it gets to that, but separately that it would exclude a quote-unquote parking business. Because I think it's a great point, is, look at the city of Atlanta, there's businesses that are truly just a parking business. And again, it's not so much for what the current application is requesting, it's for some future owner and or for a business not yet identified specifically.
Okay. Is there any other questions for staff? Okay. Next, I'll open up the hearing to hear from all those speaking in support of this application.
My name's Will Stoles. I'm the applicant. I live at 2000 Long Hollow Lane in Milton, and I think I can be brief. Robin did a good job of giving you some of the background of this property. I might fill that in just a little bit more. I think I've owned it about 12 years. When I bought it, there was a real estate office in it. I think there was a landscape business in there at some point after that, and then for the last several years, there's been an architectural office there, Brian and Contreras. They moved out, and we entered into a lease subject to this rezoning for a salon there, not really thinking about the old zoning condition. And when that lady came to pull her business license. That's what got all this started. And so we've gone through an entire rezoning because I think that was the only way we could get the stipulation for the antique shop off of there. In the process, it's been treated like a rezoning. In other words, it's gone through all the departments, and we've got a list of required modifications to the property now that probably make the salon use unfeasible for me. I mean, it would take me 2 years in rent to recoup the cost of the improvements that are required right now. So I'm telling you that only to tell you that if you approve this tonight, there may or may not be a salon there anytime in the future, because I don't know that I can really make any sense of that. I just wanted to make sure that was on the table. Other than that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can that you might have. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to, do we have any other speaking in support of this application? The city clerk, any comment
No
cards?
other names,
No.
no.
Do we have anybody speaking against?
No, sir.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the hearing then. And if there's any council discussion or motion in the second.
Make a motion.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve RZO 9-05. I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 10-1018, RZO 9-05, 12645 Birmingham Highway, State Route 372 by McRae and Stoltz Incorporated, to request a rezoning from C1 to C1 to change the use from antique store to general commercial uses, with the conditions recommended by staff, with the addition of the following words added to condition 3B, which would be for use at the applicant's business only with regard to the parking spaces, and also to add condition number 5, which states the following: prior to the installation of a driveway, applicant must go before the DRB to review materials used, location of driveway, and potential tree removal. That's the end of my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Tart, a second by Councilmember Thurman. Before we vote on that, I'd like to make sure that the applicant is clear on those two changes and either acknowledges them or if that would negatively impact his plans. Okay. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, one
Julie?
question. With regard to Councilmember Tart's motion, where you indicated in item 5 as an addition, you said before a driveway is contemplated. I think what I heard Robin indicate was that whether really prior to any land disturbance, which could include driveway access and or parking at the rear and or tree removal, only because land disturbance, it may be that the land disturbance may or may not be for the driveway, it may be for parking. So I just wanted to make sure that the land disturbance was clear, it would be for any of those activities.
Can I address the point on that one, Shirley?
Yes, sir, you can. You speak, yeah, in the microphone.
If it helps with your discussion there, the tree that Robin's talking about would not be, I could put in 100 parking spaces there and never disturb that tree. The back of this property is essentially an old field.
Right.
I doubt that there would be anything other than grass disturbed to put in these, so it's no, but to go back or whatever you want me to do is fine.
And thank you for that, Mr. Stoltz. I think I was just commenting that right now our staff had recommended, I think because we're required to do it, is that because this was a conceptual site plan, that when it becomes specific, it just goes back before land disturbance back to the design review board. It doesn't come back to us. It just goes back to the design review board. And I just wanted to clarify, and it's up to the maker of the motion, is that it's not just before driveway, but it would be before any land disturbance, whether that be a driveway or the parking and or tree removal, that it goes back to the design review board.
Sure.
And Robin, does that capture what you were indicating?
Yes.
Was that, okay. Does anything need to be changed in there for that or not? Okay. Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I had one other question for Mr. Stoltz. The list of conditions to approve this was pretty short, and I didn't see necessarily anything that was some type of an economic burden that would change the conditions of whether or not you could do this.
Not your conditions. It's more the, you have to go through the health department, you have to go through DOT, you have to go through.
All right. Well, I was worried that we were putting up
No,
some kind
thank
of
you.
roadblocks to being able to
I appreciate
conduct commerce,
that.
and
No,
I was a little worried.
No, I
Okay.
appreciate that. No, it's not. It's more the specific departmental
Okay.
conditions. So.
Yeah, I think that probably would have to do with any type of use. Could be other uses, it's still
Yeah.
impact. Okay, if there's no more, do I have, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, will the city clerk please say on the next item?
There are no unfinished business items. Going on to new business. First, we have a resolution for consideration of projects to be submitted for the use of MARTA Capital Reserve funding. This is agenda item number 10-1039, presented by Carter Lucas, Public Works Director.
Mayor and City Council, thank you. The resolution before you tonight is one that we've been discussing over the past 3 or 4 weeks regarding the use of the MARTA offset funds, approximately $625,000 that are available to the City of Milton for use on transportation enhancements within a half mile of our 2 bus routes here right near City Hall. If you choose to approve this resolution tonight, it'll authorize staff to move forward with inclusion of these projects in the first quarter tip amendments with ARC. I wanted to make a couple of comments to you regarding some things that came up at the last meeting, some clarifications that I had from MARTA once this agenda item had been set. The first one was regarding the acquisition of parkland. While MARTA didn't think that that strictly fell within the guidelines established for the use of these funds, they were willing to review it and to send it to their council for review. So if you chose to modify this resolution to add that, it's possible for MARTA to review it and make the determination at that time whether or not it could move forward on the project list. The second one was some discussion that we had on the bus shelters. I did get some clarification on that. And John, on that desktop, on that computer, there is a picture of, I think it's a bus shelter with ad. That is the standard MARTA bus shelter that they have recently created. The way their bus shelters will work is this particular shelter with advertising would be installed and maintained by MARTA for free. The revenue generated would be split with the city. Revenue would be dependent on location and the advertiser and may amount to $1,000 a year. It would just vary by location, so it's not a significant amount. If you chose this same shelter without advertising, or you chose to do your own bus shelter that would be probably more in the style of Milton, that would be, the construction would be at the expense of the city as well as the future maintenance of the bus shelter. So that was a little bit clarification on the bus shelters proposed. Another item that did come up in my discussion with MARTA was the potential for including paving projects along the bus routes in this funding. Enhancement of the ride for the users. He thought that there may be an argument for that. So if you chose to want to include potential paving on Webb or Morris, we might be a little bit ahead of the game with the Morris Road project, but we could include those on this list too if you so choose to amend the resolution tonight. So with that, I think those were the questions that had come up last time. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Question?
Would it be your recommendation, Mr. Lucas, because as you stated with MLT 05, that being the bus shelters, because we as a city, if they're not those that are promoted by MARTA, but instead we would absorb that cost, et cetera, were you recommending that if we considered modifying this resolution, that that would be removed if we were to add the other two? or were you as staff recommending that those still remain, just understanding that we might have the option of having a different style?
I would say that they would remain.
Okay.
Once these are on the list, it doesn't mean that we need to do the project, but it allows us to do the project.
Right. There's
We
no
also
commitment.
have the ability to amend this list every quarter,
Terrific.
so we could take or add to the list each quarter.
And by having this 05, it contemplates those various options that you outlined.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Karen?
You mentioned adding paving as an additional one to this list. Would we need to have a dollar amount in there and a very specific thing, or can we just say MLT-06 paving?
We'll add it in very general language, so it doesn't tie us to any particular road segment, as well as some dollars associated with that. The language is more important than the dollar amount.
Okay.
And so we could have $5 million on this list, and it would not tie us to anything. The $625,000 could be used to fund the project in its entirety or assist with funding of a project.
So we could approve the resolution, and then you could adjust attachment A as you determined was appropriate for the dollars?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think that would be appropriate, right?
You're saying paving Morris Road in?
Well, the way we will
Paving in general.
word it is just paving within a half mile of bus routes 143 and 185. And then we'll work to see which projects may fall within that criteria.
Alan?
I just need a little clarification before I approve this, because with regard to MLT 05, the bus shelters on routes 143 and 185, are you telling me that if we were approved for this total amount, that MARTA's not going to be expecting us to put bus shelters on routes 143 and 185? I've never heard of a grant that you just got to block them out and you can just decide what you want to do with it.
That's right. We would get, this list would basically be our wish list that would be in the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Plan. And we could do any or all of these projects with this funding. So we would not be expected to do any particular project if we so choose not to.
Okay, any other questions? Julie?
I was going to say, I have a motion when you're ready.
Bill?
Attachment A then, in the fund allocations in there, they're just presented there for estimate purposes.
Yes, sir.
And they're not specifically allocated to any one of those.
Yes, sir. We tried to get as close as we could with our cost estimates, and we'll do so with anything that's added to tonight, too.
Okay, if no other questions, I think I got a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I put forward a motion to approve agenda item number 10-1039, a resolution for consideration of projects to be submitted for the use of MARTA Capital Reserve funding with two specific additions, and that would be to add to attachment A, MLT 06, which would include the acquisition of possible parkland within 1/2 mile of bus routes 143 and 185, as well as adding MLT-07, which would include possible paving projects also within 1/2 mile of bus routes 143 and 185.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilmember Bailey, a second by Councilmember Tarr. Are there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
City Clerk, please sound the next item.
Next item is approval for execution of a multi-jurisdictional burn memorial grant from the U.S. Department of Justice through the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council to the Atlanta Judicial Council. This is agenda item number 09-1040, presented by Matt Marietta, Assistant to City Manager.
Good evening. Way back in 2009, under the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, which is part of the Department of Justice, distributed program grant monies to various police departments just on a lump sum without competitive application as a part of the Recovery Act. The new cities that had formed in Fulton County, us, Johns Creek, Sandy Springs, Chattahoochee Hills, were exempted from access to that grant money because of our new status and the fact that we had not applied. We did not have enough statistical data reported to the FBI. They wanted 3 years, and we hadn't been in existence 3 years, so we were not able to apply for the grant. At the same time, they also distributed money to the states in a programmatic form, and that was given to the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, which was subsequently distributed to the judicial circuits within the state of Georgia. The Atlanta Judicial Circuit, of which we were a part, received $500,000. Recognizing that the new cities missed out on this grant opportunity, Fulton County proposed that some of this grant money, some of this $500,000, would be spent for the benefit of Milton, Johns Creek, Sandy Springs, and Chattahoochee Hills. Ultimately, the way this worked out is we are all going to participate in a group project that enhances the overall Fulton County system, but has specific benefit to the city of Milton. The sub-grant award coming to the city of Milton is $25,000, and that would be specifically to purchase what is called mobile identification system. It's basically a portable AFIS automated fingerprint identification system. You can take fingerprints via computer scanner and check it versus the FBI or the GCIC, the GBI's database, to see if somebody's wanted, if they have criminal history. That's not something that we have on site at this time, and it would enhance our ability to do our job, our police officers to do their job here in the city of Milton rather than have to go somewhere else to do that. The documents that were distributed to you in your packets, if you read them carefully, have Fulton County and the Board of Commissioners filled in automatically in all the blanks. So obviously Milton is not going to be signing any documents that have Fulton County Board of Commissioners and their tax identification number primary on the document. So I have been in contact with the other 4 cities and with Fulton County today to try to alleviate that problem. But what I'm bringing before you tonight is an opportunity to, there also is a very short window that the federal government wants this back in. So pursuant to acceptable review by the city attorney, who I've also been speaking with, I'd like your approval if it works out that the documents are beneficial to Milton the way they rewrite them, that we can execute this grant and receive the $25,000 grant money as a sub-grantee of Fulton County.
Is there any questions? Okay.
Based on what I've read, this is a non-matching grant, so this is just basically $25,000 given to us.
This is $25,000. It has to be spent in accordance with the overall county project because it does come from it comes through their hands, through the Atlanta Judicial Circuit's hands. But there is no match.
And is this about the amount of money we expect this equipment to cost us, or will there be some additional funds that will be required to get the equipment?
Yes, this is based on what the general price for the piece of equipment was.
Okay.
So there shouldn't be any extra.
So we're close to what it will really cost us.
Yes.
Julie?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick question, Matt. On the last page, there's just a sentence that mentions that Milton could be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the items once funded or once the funding runs out. I'm assuming that the cost of maintenance is very low. I just need to ask the question.
It's access to the federal database.
Minimal to none.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions?
Mayor, if I could jump in a second. This is one of those times where we're not actually asking you to approve the document that you have, because I don't think we can sign this document. So we talked with our city attorney earlier, and if we could entertain, if somebody would be willing to make a motion that basically authorizes the mayor to execute a grant application in reference to the Byrne Memorial Grant, no matter what that form looks like. If this is its general purpose, that's kind of what we're looking for.
Mayor, I'll be glad to do that. I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the mayor to execute a multi-jurisdictional burn memorial grant from the U.S. Department of Justice to the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council to the Atlanta Judicial Council once approved by the city attorney.
I have a motion by Councilmember Thurman and a second by Councilmember Hewitt. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
We have a third item that was added by motion and vote, intergovernmental agreement, Ken Gerard, City Attorney.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I passed out a proposed IGA that will authorize the City of Milton to join in partnership with some of our fellow cities, Alpharetta, Dunwoody, Johns Creek, Roswell, and Sandy Springs, for participation in the U.S. Geological Survey Assistance Award Program. You may recall a few weeks ago, perhaps a month or so ago, this council authorized an IGA to participate in an aerial imagery undertaking, where we were going to pool resources to try and get a good deal on our aerial imagery project. And I believe Alpharetta was going to be the sponsoring entity that was going to try and go out and solicit RFPs to get the best deal they could, and then share, obviously, that reduced cost with all of the other cities. This is something that I believe Sandy Springs, quite frankly, is the spearheading this, where there is some U.S. Geological Survey grant money out there that might be available, and they would like all of the cities that participated in the earlier project to also agree to participate in at least trying to apply for an award from the USGS that will then be used to fund the aerial imagery project. So all we are agreeing to do is to participate with Sandy Springs, who would at this point be the entity that would complete the application. We will agree to cooperate with them, provide some staff resources to them if they need it. They probably won't, but we'll provide it to them. They will then apply for the grant. They may get it, they may not, but whatever pool of money comes into us by this grant, we will split it on a pro-rata basis based upon our geographical area of the whole, just like we did with the funding of the aerial imagery survey. So all I'm looking for here is your permission to say to Sandy Springs, please sign the application for this money on our behalf.
Okay, do we have any questions for Mr. Gerard? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion and a second.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve an agreement by and among the cities of Alpharetta, Dunwoody, Johns Creek, Milton, Roswell, Sandy Springs, participation in the U.S. Geological Survey Assistance Award Program, and allow our mayor and city manager and city attorney to enter into that agreement.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Tartt, second by Councilmember Thurman. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, Mr. Gerard, do you have another item? City clerk wants to...
That's it.
What was that?
That's it. We're moving to mayor and council reports.
Okay. Do I have any, moving on to mayor and council reports, do I have any reports from council on anything? Anybody got anything they want to report on? Okay, again, the only thing I wanted to, again, thank our public safety and fire department, and I'm sure maybe we'll get the police department on the news next week or something.
We'll see what we can do.
But anyways, you guys sure make us look good. Stacy's not here, but I want to thank the staff and finance department for making us look good too. So we're making Milton look good. So thank you guys. If there's no other council reports, I'll move on to our staff reports.
Mayor, I'll just start, but I don't have much tonight because we've actually published a couple of staff reports because this looked in anticipation of a short agenda. We took a couple of items that we otherwise could have had on a workshop and brought them tonight in the form of a staff report. The first one will be a discussion of the needs assessment survey for Parks and Recreation. A while back I circulated an email to you that kind of indicated that this was our next step, and that one of the things in the process was to make a determination as to how many citizens we actually surveyed, whether we surveyed everybody, whether we surveyed a portion of the population that would still end up in a justified and valid survey. At the time I sent that email, I think I indicated to you that we were seeking out prices for what it costs to do the entire city versus just a sample population, both of which would end up in a similar result. One where each citizen would be reached out to get their feedback, and the other where only a portion would be still representing a valid sample. We now have prices in for that, and I can tell you, I'm going to let Cindy make the presentation here in a minute as to why she professionally believes we need to survey the entire city, but the cost was such that it was not anywhere near what we had kind of estimated initially, thinking it might be double. It was nowhere near that, so we're really kind of here tonight to explain this process to you a little bit, and I think at the end we'll all come to the same conclusion. If we don't, I'll be surprised, but also take the opportunity tonight to introduce to you Cindy Bonacci. If you haven't met her yet, she's our Parks and Recreation Director, and she's here to talk about the needs assessment.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Thank you, Chris. First, let me just say it's an honor to serve as your Parks and Recreation Director. I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk with all of you yet. Some of you I have, and I'm just very excited about this opportunity and where Milton is, and just the potential for an expansion of a great Parks and Recreation system here in Milton. So I've typed up a brief synopsis of how we got to where we are in the needs assessment process. So if you'll bear with me, I'll kind of take you back as to how we've transitioned to this point. As a result of the completion of the Park Assessment Plan, a needs assessment has become the next priority of the Parks and Recreation Department. Information must be collected from Milton citizens to determine the future of a comprehensive Parks and Recreation initiative. In November 2009, an RFP for a City of Milton Parks and Recreation needs assessment was released to 6 firms. In December, 3 firms had successfully responded with proposals. Follow-up with each of these firms was conducted to make sure that pricing and scope of work were comparable. The scope of these initial proposals was to mail a needs assessment survey to a sampling of Milton households. This would mean roughly 1 of every 3 households would receive the mailed survey. This initial option was pursued primarily to reduce the cost of the project. Upon further consideration of staff and wanting as many Milton citizens as possible to have input in this process while still limiting the overall cost, an online web survey was added to the RFP. This online web survey would allow citizens who possibly did not receive the mailed survey an opportunity to give input. However, the results from this web survey would not be statistically valid and thus would not carry the same weight as the mailed survey results. Upon further consideration, the RFP was again updated to include a bid for mailing to each Milton household, roughly 11,500 mailings. This option would allow every Milton household to have input in this landmark process if they so choose. This final option for a needs assessment is the best option for Milton for a variety of reasons. This needs assessment is historical and will serve as the foundation for Parks and Recreation initiatives for at least the next 5 to 10 years. Because this is the first Parks and Recreation needs assessment, it is critical to include as many citizens in the process as possible while collecting statistically valid data. If citizens do not support and trust the input process, they may very well not accept or support the results. This could be a long-term detriment to the city when citizen support is needed for Parks and Recreation funding initiatives in the future. The main reason that this ideal option was not actively pursued initially was the cost factor. The thought was that an all-inclusive survey could as much as double the cost of the project. However, the bids for the 11,500 mailing were not double, but an increase of approximately $6,000. While this is an increase above the cost of the sampling, the increase is worth it because all Milton citizens would have the opportunity to participate in the process. This will allow the results to carry additional merit with citizens as future initiatives are identified. Basically, this cost increase will serve as an investment into the future of Milton Parks and Recreation. If we're going to complete this needs assessment process, it should be done correctly from the beginning with no regrets as to how it should have or could have been done from the beginning. This historical data is just too vital to take a chance on a less than ideal process. We are ready to move forward with the award of a contract to the lowest bidder for the 11,500 all-inclusive mailing as early as tomorrow. The entire project will take approximately 12 weeks from the time contract documents are executed. I'll be happy to entertain questions, discussion about where we are.
Any questions for Cindy? No?
First of all, welcome.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding incentives for people to return their surveys. I know one of the things that the CPAC did when we were sending out a survey for that particular process was that board went out and got incentives, gift certificates, whatever, for people who turn them in, random drawings. Has that been considered for this to help encourage people to return the surveys that are sent out?
Because we have not awarded the project to a firm yet, we have not gone into incentives, that option yet. We can look into that and discuss incentives for that. I feel like just with where Milton is historically, that we're probably going to get a lot more feedback than we normally would anticipate from a needs assessment type survey. But we can definitely look into some incentives for returns.
Well, it's a good way to not only provide incentives for them to return stuff, but it's a good way to advertise the businesses in the Milton area too.
Yeah. Okay.
Give them some time.
Karen?
Will the exact questions and all in the survey, will the company work with our Parks Committee to determine? Because obviously, since we only have one active park right now, it's a little different needs assessment than it would be for one that was already had a big existing parks department.
Yes, correct. And the draft of the questions, that process has already begun.
Okay.
So we have a draft list now. The only thing that we may add to that draft of questions is now that special events falls under Parks and Recreation, it may be a good opportunity to include a question specifically relating to special events, which was not included on the original draft of questions. But once a firm is selected, then they would kind of work with us to make sure the questions are written correctly, will be statistically valid, and can be analyzed correctly to get the results that we need.
Julie?
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome.
Thank
Also,
you.
Very nice to have you. I know that all of us look very forward to working with you on behalf of citizens. In terms of the questions that are being drafted and crafted, to your point, the RFPs, I'm assuming that it went to not just a mail house, but to corporations that also obviously are focused on statistically valid sampling as well as the questioning. But it's probably fair to assume that obviously yourself and Chris and others will be critically involved in that process before anything is finalized and sent out.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that over the next 12 weeks we'll get some updates or some opportunities to meet with you or to provide some perspective. And also, just to clarify, I'm assuming that because this is meant to be a survey that contemplates the whole of Milton, not any one individual park, it will also contemplate additional needs for additional places and not just what might we do with the initial land that we have. So I'm assuming it's going to cover a whole host of different categories.
Yes, it will address program needs. It will address park needs, both from active recreation standpoint as well as more of green space, natural passive uses. It will be very diverse and should cover basically everything that we're interested in gathering from the public. That's the whole point. The only thing when you're crafting a survey is to try to keep it short and sweet, because people lose interest if it becomes lengthy, and it can be intimidating if they look at it and they say, I really don't want to fill this out. But the length of it will play a factor, and the firm will help craft the questions and the length of documents so that it is not as intimidating for people to complete and fill out. But it will be very diverse and should cover a very broad range of recreation opportunities, both from facilities and programs going forward.
And I'm assuming as a part of that, it'll be clear to folks, because sometimes some individuals filling that out might think, oh, I have to think about it in the context of what's currently existing, whether that be programmed land or not, and or do the citizens believe that we need more places to provide some of those programs, whether they be active or recreational? And will it also contemplate the perspective of citizens in terms of financing options?
Yes, there will be some questions on there as far as what citizens would support in the future. If they want these certain amenities in Milton, would they support funding the creation of those amenities and different options for doing that going forward, such as a bond referendum?
Thank you very much.
This isn't Cindy's first needs assessment, so we've got somebody who's done this before, which is one of the things we look for in finding the right person for that position. Is there anybody on council that's absolutely just opposed to doing the full, I think I should ask it that way, anybody opposed to doing the full survey of all the citizens as opposed to the smaller sample? Wonderful.
Thank you very much for pursuing the involvement of all citizens.
I didn't want to come in and double the cost of a project on my very first day. So I waited to my second day, but it did not turn out, the numbers did not turn out as we had thought they could. So I'm very pleased with the numbers.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds good.
Good. And then, Mayor, tonight we also want to bring back, we started to talk about a possible road abandonment issue at the last work session. We had a new document that came to light that we need to do some research into. It looks as though we still do have an issue to talk about. So before it got cold and got out of everybody's mind, we wanted to bring that back forward to talk about the Crabapple Road abandonment tonight.
So this was just a quick follow-up to the document that Councilwoman Thurman had provided. Once we had a chance to look at it, it does look like that document abandoned everything except what's been brought forward at this point. So we have about 297 feet from Birmingham Highway back up the old Crabapple Circle roadbed that would be requested to be abandoned under this current application that we bring forward. Under our process, we would advertise this for 2 weeks, and we would look to bring a resolution forward for your consideration at the March 1st council meeting.
We bring it forward because I did get an email from Councilmember Thurman who wanted to have some discussion, I guess, about
What our options are?
Possible.
Is it something we have to abandon? Is it something that we could keep as city property, as a pocket park? And I guess I'm still a little bit confused because the person that did the original abandonment was led by Wheelan Homes, and it looks like to me that based on what we're abandoning, a lot of it is the property adjacent to them where they've already built their little retention pond. So they're under the assumption that that has already been abandoned, I believe, because that was what was supposed to be. So I guess if there was a problem, maybe just with the legal description of what originally was done. Because initially it was supposed to be the entire road, and that's what was advertised as what it was when that abandonment was done in 2005.
Right. Everything that they've been able to determine through the title search indicates that this piece adjacent, right behind the gas station on the corner there, was not included in that abandonment.
Because that was the part that was supposed to be, and I think that's part of that is Wheelan has already built a little retention pond.
Right, and this would be actually under the consideration abandoned to 3 property owners. A portion to Wheelan, a portion to the gas station, and then a portion to
Crabapple Crossroads,
Crabapple
LLC.
Crossroads, the property right adjacent to the gas station.
What options do we have?
You always have the option to do nothing. There's no requirement that we abandon. You don't have to. Obviously, we can abandon and then divide the property up pursuant to just the general law of right down the center line to the property owners on either side. But that's up to you whether this would be appropriate for a pocket park. I don't know. I'll have to yield to Carter on that.
It's a 1/4 acre that might possibly become part of our bike and pedestrian pathway. I don't know if there's any use for it. I just hate to say, okay, they've asked for us to give them the property, let's just give it to them without looking at whether or not there was a use for it for the city.
Right.
So is that what you're saying, Ken? If we do nothing, then at some point we can go back and look at options like that? Or?
Sure. Of course, this is city property.
And I'll just comment that I would concur that I don't think we want to be in the habit of just giving away property, especially when we're talking about the need for more green space in Crabapple. I think we've acknowledged in prior public hearings that the green space that was supposed to be allocated within Crabapple has indeed not been met. And not only is it 297 feet, it's also by that width. And whether that be a pocket park or if it be part of a transportation mechanism, and to Councilmember Thurman's point, whether that be pedestrian or bike-oriented, it could still be part of that transportation master plan that we've just recently approved that, again, talked about the necessity for multimodal sorts of approaches. So I would be in favor of maintaining that as city property so that we keep all of our options available for all of our citizens.
Okay.
Okay.
What we obviously brought it forward to the council because of the request from the people over there. At this point, I just confirmed with Ken, we don't have to bring it forward to you all for an actual denial. We're just in the position where we just won't bring it forward at this point, and if it ever comes back up in the future, we will. Is there anybody that I guess is in opposition to that? We'll just leave well enough alone.
Who brought it forward which property owners actually brought it forward?
The gas station.
Would it be important for us to officially respond at least to that request, though, so we're not being non-responsive?
We will, well, we will respond from staff standpoint.
Okay.
And that's more than appropriate. I mean, a letter from staff saying the council has considered the request and is not inclined to abandon it this time.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, Mayor, I just have,
Bill?
sorry.
I was wondering if we could get an update on the paving of Morris Road.
Call
We
in
are-
the weather gods for us.
We are ready to go, pending weather. Whenever we get some warm spells like we have now, we get the rain. So when we can get a consistent 14 days, 10 to 14 days of warm and dry weather, we'll move forward.
I'm praying for it also.
I will tell you, based on the weather forecast, it will not be tomorrow.
I was going to say, I've
seen
been
that.
personally affected by that road because I busted up my last car on that big pothole.
We have awarded that contract and truly now are waiting on 10 days of 45 degrees and rising and as dry as it can be. And we're ready to mobilize within 24-hour notice if we see that window emerge.
I can give you some hints from personal experience. You go out and buy a bunch of grass seed, plant it, it won't rain. It'll dry right up. Okay, is there any other staff?
Mayor, I just have one more thing I want to introduce to you all. Some of you have met in the earlier meeting we had, and some will meet in the meeting we have immediately following this meeting. The City of Milton's new Community Development Director is Lynn Tully. Lynn is in the audience. You'll have a chance to meet her personally here in a minute if you haven't yet. Lynn served as a Community Development Director in Dawson County, has also served in Cherokee County as well as Kingsport, Tennessee. Lynn's got a master's degree of city planning from Georgia Tech, as well as a Bachelor of Science degree with an architecture major from Georgia Tech. A lot of good community development experience, a fairly exhausting process we went through. I'm comfortable that Lynn is a good fit for our team, a good fit for Milton that comes with a lot of professional experience. And I am encouraged that that is kind of our last hiring decision that we needed to make to finish off the transition. And I think it's a very positive one for Milton. So you'll have an opportunity to talk with her. The stars just happened to line up tonight. She really hasn't started yet. We made the job offer yesterday, as a matter of fact. But I said, if you want a crash course in Milton government, coming on a Wednesday night at a council meeting night that we were going to talk about some of the stuff we talked about, as well as having a zoning agenda, it would be a good thing to see. So Lynn will be with us on a full-time basis starting next week. But really adds some good experience and good depth to our city staff. So welcome to Lynn. That's what I have, Mayor.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I do need, the council will allow an executive session for purposes of land acquisition, personnel, and potential litigation. We will be coming back out after that executive session with one additional item.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to adjourn into executive session to discuss potential land acquisition, personnel, and potential litigation.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Thurman, second by Councilmember Hewitt. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I have left some documents at your station. I would ask that there may be an agreement that you could take that back with you.
to reconvene the regular meeting.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Luss, second by Councilmember Hewitt to reconvene the meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Mr. Mayor, could the council entertain a motion and second to approve the consent agreement that we just discussed and that I have provided for the clerk and made part of tonight's record?
So moved.
Second motion.
We got a motion by Councilmember Thurman, and I think was that second Councilmember Tartt?
Or less, either one.
I heard it from over here first, so Councilmember Tartt. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Just need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Thurman that we adjourn, and seconded by Councilmember Luss.
Thought we were done.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.